The first one is just going to be that upfront kind of idea. So I'll break them down all five of them real quick for you. One is going to be the upfront money. Second one is going to be your recurring revenue, whatever that looks like. Third one is kind of something that we do, and Dwayne, I think, is kind of doing this now with his health coaching, is kind of like a bolt-on. So you have like your normal membership, and then you're bolting on like another membership on top of that.
For over 260 episodes, Dwayne Brummett and Ali Alberigo have been sharing how to take your martial arts school to the next level. Welcome to another edition of SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Now here's your host, Dwayne and Ali.
All right, Dwayne Brummett here with Ali Alberigo, SchoolOwnerTalk.com. Ali, good morning, sir.
Good morning to you as well. I think we need to work on that intro a bit. It's not as clear as and seamless. We have to figure out how to get Zoom to make it much more pro. But at least
this is only our second time doing Zoom this way, so you know.
Hey, but the good news is my microphone and my camera work, so that's good.
Yeah, well, the reason we got to switch to Zoom is because you don't know how to do technology. No,
I don't know how to get Be Live to work at all. But hey, listen, let me introduce our guest. I'm super excited. I'm going to quickly just go over a little bit about who this person is. And, as an 11-year-old, he's been, as doing the martial arts schools for 11 years, an owner, outside of Baltimore, Maryland. Lance started his own BJJ, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu Academy, in the back of a friend's Taekwondo studio, which happens to a lot of us, right? We start off in dance centers and start off in a gym somewhere and so on. And he had 3 students, and today he's grown his business to over 600. Listen to that, 600 students, and generating well over $1 million. I mean, that's like the dream come true for most business owners in the school industry. And he's taken all the systems and his processes that it took to grow his school, and he's sharing it now with hundreds of martial arts school owners as a coach and consultant, and through this program that he has. He teaches them so they don't have to waste their hard-earned money and time, and he's helping them hit numbers that are unimaginable. So we're super excited today to have you on our call. And how do you say your last name? Is it Trippett?
Trippett, yep.
Yeah, so this is Lance Trippett, and I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to our podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've been watching you guys for a while now, so it's kind of exciting to be on here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Dwayne and I have what is this, 268?
270. This is 270.
270 episodes. That's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah, if for nothing else, we're pretty stubborn, right? Like we don't give up that easy, right? So it's pretty cool, but it's fun to see that there are so many people out there that are getting what we call golden nuggets, like those little gems from these interviews. So I'm sure they're going to pick up on a lot of really great things from you too as well. So here's the interesting thing. So I'm a traditional martial artist. Dwayne is traditional martial artist. You're into the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu system, which could be considered very traditional, right? In many regards, but it's also has the MMA component. So maybe just jump right in. How do you?
I started also traditional with Kenpo, Ed Parker Kenpo karate and Taekwondo when I was way younger. But so I'm kind of in the traditional aspects as well as kind of the MMA side of it.
I was going to ask you, do you find there's an extreme difference on the way an MMA BJJ school may run their business versus a traditional karate school or martial arts school? Because I think a lot of people might be saying, well, what am I going to learn from this BJJ guy? I do Shotokan, and vice versa. Like, what am I going to learn from the Shotokan traditionalist, and I'm a BJJ school? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think first, actually, most of the karate martial art kind of traditional, I guess you'd say, school owners, like they actually have it a lot. They have the basic programs down a lot better, I think, than a lot of the jiu-jitsu guys. Okay. I think the jiu-jitsu guys kind of came in after, obviously karate, Kenpo, Taekwondo, things like that were in the States, for 30, 40 years before jiu-jitsu became popular. So it got that Americanized business side to it a little bit, where like jiu-jitsu came and it was just like, hey, we're going to go in here and beat a bunch of people up. And if they stay, they're going to stay. And if they don't, they don't.
Right.
So I think, the karate martial art, typical traditional martial arts that you think about actually have a step up on a lot of the jiu-jitsu programs. We're trying to catch up and change some things in the industry. But I think, it's all knowledge. I think business is business, whether you're selling, ice cream or martial arts. So all of the concepts and principles are going to be the same. It's just a lot of times molding them to fit your actual business.
Gotcha.
Hey, do you find that, working with since you're known more for obviously jiu-jitsu than anything else, right? That more jiu-jitsu schools want to work with somebody that has a jiu-jitsu background and has their own jiu-jitsu school as opposed to somebody that doesn't? I
think a lot of the jiu-jitsu guys are conceited, or I don't know, big egos or whatever you want to call it. I think, they say like jiu-jitsu is the best and everything else is kind of under that. And so I think, probably helps that I'm a second degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in that aspect. But we work with Krav Maga schools, we work Taekwondo schools, regular, karate and all like that. So, but I think a lot of the jiu-jitsu guys definitely have egos to that jiu-jitsu is the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, I get it. I think that's interesting too, because on my end, I see that as well, but in the opposite direction. So like a lot of the traditionalists, they think that they deserve so much more, and they are expecting certain things because they put a lot of time into their training and they're at a higher level and so on. And I don't think it's any of the stuff that we're talking about. Ego, expectations doesn't matter when it comes to business, right? It's all about hard work and systems and paying attention to what you're running in your business.
Yeah, no, we have a couple, world champion black belt jiu-jitsu guys, red belt, they've have systems named after themselves and things like that. And, it's kind of like that field of dreams. Like if I build it, they will come, and like they build it and nobody comes. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, I need to figure out this marketing stuff, or I need to figure out how to advertise, or, that I think a lot of people, and not just the jiu-jitsu guys, but in general, I think people think their medals and acclimates and tournaments and things like that are going to get them a lot further than they do. Obviously, if you're maybe some super famous George St. Pierre, like, you could probably get people to come to your school, but for the average world champion or something like that, it really doesn't matter. And I kind of always joke them, because they'll be like, oh, well, I have this, or, that doesn't fit my marketing or my brand, and then I say, hey, do me a favor. Like if you walk around your town, how many autographs are people asking you for? Well, nobody's really asking me for an autograph. Yeah, because no one knows who you are. Like, it's like within 5 miles of your house, if no one's asking you for autographs, you're probably not that popular.
Well, and you can actually be that popular and be a horrible business person, and also a horrible teacher, because, sometimes you have okay black belts, right? But they are phenomenal teachers. Phil Jackson for was a basketball player, but he was nothing like Michael Jordan.
No,
but he was a phenomenal coach that could get the best out of his players. So there's always many different levels that you can perform on. But if you can't perform on the ones that are necessary, right, to survive, then you're pretty much screwed in the business, right?
Yeah. And I had in my town, I won't mention the martial artist, but very famous movie star. They opened up a super center in my area. And I said that it was going to fail within 4 months. I mean, it was like the size of a supermarket, no doubt. But I knew it would fail because, number one, it was just his name and name alone. He wasn't even there personally teaching. So once people joined and they got to see that they weren't going to meet the legend, then why bother being under that name brand? And the prices were astronomical, and really, honestly, it didn't have what everyone expected, as far as quality of instructors, because they were mediocre guys from Long Island anyway that were teaching in their schools. Now they're running at the super center. So, it didn't make a difference. So they closed within 4 months, millions of dollars invested, and they lost everything. So I have a good question for you. So what do you think? And now every area is different state by state, but what do you think the industry is dealing with right now with COVID? How do you see people coming out of it? Do you see schools growing, a lot of schools going out of business? What's your general thought on that?
I mean, I think a lot of schools will go out of business, but I think the ones that will last will thrive. We're seeing huge, we signed up 58 people at my gym last month.
Wow.
So it's, we're seeing huge increases We're in Maryland. Things are just now, we were at 50% capacity last month. This month they changed it. Like we're kind of open. We have to wear masks and stuff, but so we're capacity wise, we're back to normal. But people are, people are coming in, people are opting into our leads, our forums and organically and websites and all that kind of stuff. So I think the ones that are hurting are probably not going to make it. And then the ones that survive, I think will really thrive. I think they'll pick up a lot of that market share.
That's great. Great news. Yeah.
What I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the mindset that we as martial artists now have to have in order to not only survive but to actually thrive? Because I think the problems in business are really the problems that are actually between our head, right?
Yeah.
So what's the mindset shift that has to happen in order to be successful in this now?
Well, I think the major thing is that we need to be, as owners, compensated for our skills and our knowledge and our business. I think most owners don't value themselves or their skills or their skill sets quite the way they should. So, and not even others. Like I was the same way, 4 or 5 years ago. We were doing a kickboxing program. We were selling it for $69 or $89 a month. And literally within one shift of mindset, we looked at the bills and we said, man, this doesn't make sense. And we raised that price to $200 a month, and we lost a couple people, but we brought new people in, and what it was the product never changed. The system of teaching, the instructors, none of that changed. It was just, we were pricing it at the wrong price. And when we raised that price, that $200 price point was the actual price that people were willing to pay. But us as business owners, we didn't have the confidence in it. So a lot of times I think, people struggle with that, and they look to the neighbor, they look down the street, they think, oh, my area, and they price it accordingly to that. And they don't price things and get the money that they need to survive as a business.
That's a really interesting thing. So for people who are listening, I think that's a really, really great golden nugget, a little piece of information that they should understand, that not necessarily do they have to run with the pack. In other words, price-wise with all the other schools. They have to find out where their value is and be confident enough to sell it right at what they're worth. So
and Allie and I both decided last year during the middle of COVID, I think it was, I don't know when you switched, but I know I did come September, I went ahead and raised my price. I'm like, I'm not charging this price anymore. I'm raising my price. I need to make up for what I'm losing. And so even in the middle of COVID, I raised my prices.
Yeah. Well, and you really think about it. And if someone doesn't understand that, then they don't understand economics in general, supply and demand. If I'm only allowed 25% occupancy or 50% occupancy, I have to still pay my bills at 100% occupancy. So I need to be able to raise those prices, or I need to at least price things accordingly to my business model, and hopefully at the end having a profit. The problem I see in a lot of martial arts schools is in general, most schools only have about 2 to 3 months of reserves. So you look at COVID, people are thinking, oh, it's going to be 30 days, we're going to be shut down, then we'll be right back open. And we're talking almost a year later now that we're still at occupancy, restrictions, at mask restrictions. Some people still aren't even open at all. So if you only had 2 months of reserves, and you're really hurting.
Yeah, and in our state too, we're conflicting. I'm from New York, so unless maybe you're a hot-looking 17-year-old, the governor's not going to give you any deals. Now, just kidding, because he's been held up on harassment charges recently.
Oh,
that's my plug. I don't really love what happened, so I'm very angry with him. I just have to be clear at that. But we're still at 33% capacity, and where the restrictions are so confusing. Contact sports are allowed to reopen, but only through the public school system if they have COVID tests and this and that. And if everyone's vaccinated, those vaccinated people can work together, but they can't work with non-vaccinated people. I was just going through it's the most amazing thing. If you read the logic, it makes absolutely no sense. I was just
No.
going through our state to try to figure out where we fit in. I just said, you know what, I'm going to just continually do what I'm doing. We're thriving right now. I'm not going to make all these major changes because they're only going to change it 2 weeks from now anyway. So Dwayne, did you have any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask, what your thoughts were on continuing the whole Zoom thing for schools, because I know some schools, they didn't even switch to Zoom. They said, I'm just not doing classes. Others, I know in the beginning, Allie and I talked back and forth, after 1 September hit, I said, I'm done with Zoom. And he goes, you can't be done with Zoom. Like, he talked me out of it. And I still have Zoom going on for people that won't come in. So where do you kind of see, the virtual classes, in the future?
I think it's here to stay, and the thing is, you have a student base, maybe 10%, maybe 20%, maybe 50%, depending where you are, aren't comfortable coming in yet. So if you can give them that service, like they're, and they're willing to pay for it, obviously, you can continue that service. One thing that you want to do is actually, though, make it streamlined so that, try to attach it to another class versus like having a Zoom only class. You want to make these systems and processes as simple as you can for you, your staff, whoever, so that you're not having to do an extra class that you're not maybe generating extra revenue for. But if you can streamline it, and it's like, hey, push the button and now we're on Zoom for the 5 o'clock class, then it makes sense. And then it's just training and coaching of your staff or yourself to say, like, hey, remember, every 5 minutes you got to walk over and talk to the Zoom and make sure that the people are interacting. And so now it's not just, you're focusing on the class and it's just a camera. Now it's still an interactive situation. I think people will continue to pay for it. I really think it's a great model that people can use also to generate revenue. When COVID hit, we pivoted everybody in March that's in our group to the online stuff. And we were selling a 6-week program for $299 over the phone to the people to do a regular martial arts training. And I got a lot of flack for that, especially in the jiu-jitsu community. Because like, oh, you can't teach jiu-jitsu online, blah, blah, blah. All the same stuff. Like, I can't get that price around here. Same mindset things that people forget about. And reality is that, again, I'm selling to 5, 10, 15 miles around my facility. Most of those people are brand new, like they've never done jiu-jitsu. So this is a really easy way for them to enter the market, right? To enter the facility online. They don't have to worry about getting beat up. They don't have to worry about getting hurt. They're at home. They're getting used to all of the people. And then I can use that as a trial. And then it's like, hey, by the way, you ready to come and try a class in person now? So like, I think there's a lot of opportunity there for people to advertise, market, sell online, and then even use that to bring them into the academy.
And I know, like, for us, we record the virtual classes and then we actually put them in the app.
Yep.
And they can do them on demand. So if they weren't able to make the class, whether it's virtual or in person, and they're not making a private lesson to make it up, they can actually do the the on-demand class and then just message us through the app and say, hey, I did class so-and-so, and then we can give them credit for it.
Perfect.
Hey, you know what?
I
have to say though, Zoom has opened up a whole new world for me as number one. It made all of the instructors, I think, that did it well better as teachers, right? But I have 10 students from around the world that are training that moved away that was never going to train with me ever again. They have a new family down in North Carolina. Now they're training with their son on Zoom through my video series and live classes. I have another girl in Florida, hasn't trained since she's 16, she's 32, just rejoined and she's training. Now they'll come and visit, maybe do a live class here or there, but at least they're connected. That's all they care about, being connected to our school. And they missed that. And we do 3 camera angles every class. So we start our class at 4. The program, we just run consistently until 8. We don't ever shut it off. And then people have the link, they click in and boom, we let them in, of course. Obviously we have to allow them in the class. And now they're there. And we'll have 5 or 6 people, 8 people that couldn't make it. The parents are running late from work, or they couldn't make it in. So Zoom has been a real blessing for us as well. And I'm glad Dwayne didn't shut down. So I have some friends that were like, that's it, we're back, Zoom is out. And then they had a lot of people that were uncomfortable that just said, well, we're not coming in. I don't care if everyone's allowed to come in. We're not comfortable, so we're quitting and we want out of our membership. I'm like, why can't you just keep Zoom running? Like, what's the big deal? It's not like you had to do anything, but they shot themselves in the foot, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And we even had a lot of people, like you said, a lot, even when it happened, a lot of the owners and said like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not doing the online stuff. And, same thing. I have a buddy of mine that does jujitsu I'm in Maryland. He's in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He was at a school down there. They just basically closed up and didn't do anything. And he was on our virtual stuff. And he's like, this is amazing. Like my school's not doing anything. So this is really great that we have this. And he comes to town and visits. He grew up here, but he shared it out to all the people at his school. And we picked up a bunch of people that way.
It's interesting. Our good buddy, he's a former Navy SEAL. His name is Kenny Bigby, great Brazilian Jiu Jitsu guy. And he was doing a lot of stuff that he even built a BJJ buddy. It's very famous, his video on YouTube, and he made it, put it together with sweatshirts and pants. But he was running drills. I mean, like there's no reason why, because we as teachers, you don't always have to have a partner. You could still drill one arm bar drill from mount position or whatever. So there's no reason why these people had to shut down. And I feel bad for the school owners who had that limited mindset, right? Where they're like, oh, I'm done. This is it. My life is over. And they closed and they either went out of business or shut down for long enough and were devastated with enrollment and shame.
And I think that's, a coaching thing. Like, and that's why I like coaches. I have personal mentors and coaches. And I think coaching in general is good because it helps you open that mindset. It helps you kind of, when things like this happen and you're kind of like shutting down, it's like, no, like, hey, we're going to do this, get this thing rolling. And you have that ability to break that belief and then start to, push forward on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great.
Yeah, and I agree. I think everybody should have a coach, mentor, and then also have, your 3, 4, 5 group of mastermind friends, if you will, that you bounce ideas off of, because it's just so important.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you grow.
So here's a good question for you. So I know BJJ is normally, you do have a kid market as well, but I'm sure your adult market is pretty strong, right?
Yep. We kind of have it split 3 ways. We have kids, adult, and Muay Thai is kind of our three split.
So do you find, and I'm finding this, and it's interesting because all my Facebook marketing that's working, I'm getting leads coming in with adults. Mm-hmm. The majority of my adults are not showing up for their first class. Do you think that there's a certain thing that people adults are like? I find some of them are very afraid. They're nervous. They're not sure what to expect. What are your thoughts on nurturing the adults through the door to get them to come in and do their trial class or come and sign up?
So I'm like super big on data, right? So trying to track all of those data points. And what we found is, so originally on lead nurture kind of ideas, there's a lot kind of going on, right? And and this could be kids or adults, but the idea is one, convenience, where we used to think, and this was before we were tracking a lot of the data, we used to think that people, you want to have like scarcity, meaning like, hey, I only have these 2 appointment slots. Everything else is booked. I'm really busy. And now these are the open slots for you. And what we found actually, once we started tracking all that data, is you want to have as much availability as possible. And so what we recommend for our people, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to noon on Saturdays. And if you can do Sundays, do Sundays. But basically the theory, or at least why we think this makes sense, is because people will set appointments. Like you might get a lot of set appointments, correct, but when it comes to actually people showing up, they don't show up if you have that limited capacity or limited availability. So when you open up that availability, at least what we think is going on is that if you have any availability at all, they're picking actually what's convenient for them versus like what's convenient for us. Like we want to be there from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. and that's when we want our appointments. But you look at a business is open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. or anything like that. So a lot of times I think what happens is we have a very small window of appointments available for people people pick that because they think they can make it. And then what happens is life gets in the way. They pick up their kid late from school, then it's like, oh, I got to reschedule this or that. So if you can actually have a really wide availability, they get to pick what's convenient for them versus what's convenient for us. And then we've seen, we see 70, 80% show up rates, even in our adult programs, by having that availability open.
That's interesting. Do you feel that there is a barrier where, like, I'll give you an example. We had a guy the other day that he made 6 appointments and canceled them all. And finally, I sent him a more, I call it aggressive text message. Like, hey, listen, do you really want to do this, or are you just wasting our time? No, I want to come in. I said, but you got to show up this time. And when he did come in Monday night, loved the class.
Signed up, right?
Well, we put him in a free month, and then probably by class 5, I'm going to get him, to convert. But here's the interesting thing. The guy had such a good time, he wouldn't even leave. Like, he was the last guy there. I had to say, listen, I got to set the alarm on the building. I'm like walking out the door to go home and eat dinner. And I left. I said, it's okay if I leave? And I drove away. He's still standing in front of the building, like staring at it. That's how much good fun time he had. But he did tell me that he was nervous and afraid. And that's why he didn't show for the first 4 times. And my fiance trained with me for a while, and she said that was the most intimidating thing she's ever done in her life. And it's my school, and I'm the teacher, and she still felt intimidated. So I wondered if you found a way around that, if you find that to be part of the psychological makeup that some adults, or maybe not in the BJJ.
So a couple things. One is actually what we found, again, going back to the data, is like people that reschedule, they make up 15% of our sales. So if they are willing to reschedule, and even if they reschedule multiple times, that will actually make up 15% of our sales. So it's actually a really good thing if they reschedule. If they don't show up or never text you back or never respond, obviously they're not good. But if they take the time to reschedule, they're actually really willing to come back. And typically we see about 15% of our total sales come from rescheduling appointments.
That's a big.
It's actually not a bad thing where people can, obviously that one dragged out a little bit more than normal, but it is a good sign that they probably will sign up.
Okay.
The other thing is, so the way we do it is slightly different. We do what we call more of a consultative approach. So we don't have them come in for like a class or something like that. We have them come in for a tour, and we do a consultation. We sit down. So we kind of use more of like a doctor or lawyer approach, where it's like, come in, tell me about your problems, and then I'm going to prescribe you a solution to that problem. So that's kind of the approach that we take. At least for us, for our program, it's not as intimidating because they're not coming in for a class. They're not coming in for a program. They're coming in just for a nice talk.
Great. That's interesting. I know it's easier when a parent brings in a child, because they're like, hey, listen, you want to go? We're going to go. And then they may say, I don't want to go. Like, no, we made a commitment, because parents don't care. They're not doing it. But when it comes to themselves, they feel a little bit more conscientious of it. But those are great tips, though. I like that 15% of reschedules. That's a big. Do you find this in the industry? And Dwayne, I'm sorry, I'm on one topic too long. But do you find in the industry a lot of school owners will give up like after the first cancellation, or they don't want to follow up on the phone or text messaging more than a few times? They're like, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to be what do you think? What can you tell school owners about that?
Literally call them and text them until they ask you to quit calling them and texting them. And again, this is, we use a software that actually automates a lot of this for us. And our software goes out about 6 weeks. So we'll continue for about 6 weeks. And different messages, not just like, hey, you coming in, like checking in on the, hey, you okay? Like, what's going on? Like a bunch of different messages and things like that. Typically people, and especially if you're getting a lot of leads, they're only staff, people like that are only going to reach out about 2 or 3 days is typically what we find. And then that lead is now lost. Okay. So yeah, you want to continue, whether that's setting up some kind of automated campaign. I know you guys use Spark. So some kind of automated campaign through Spark. We use like Scipio and text messaging platforms to drop them into campaigns where, again, they're just constantly getting nurtured and given new information about the program, or hey, check this video out, or hey, this is a bio, or whatever it might be.
Love
but again, just that constant nurture, but really like they opted in for something. And we want to continue to, the idea is like, you're either here to help people or you're not here to help people. If what you're selling is going to help kids, adults, fitness, nutrition, whatever it is, you're obligated to help and annoy them until you can help them and solve that problem.
Well,
So
and
like, that's kind of where I come from on this. It's like, I'm not annoying them. Like, I'm trying to help them, and I know my program is going to help them solve that problem.
Yeah, and I love that. And if one analogy could help school owners, like if you were a doctor and someone came in and they had an illness and they weren't sure if they wanted to take the prescription or the medicine, you wouldn't just throw your hands up in the air. Even though my doctor does that, he's like, hey, you should do this. And I go, I don't want to. He's like, okay, don't bother. But I mean, your obligation is to try to get them to do what's right for them, even if it takes more work. And I think that that's important.
Yeah.
So Dwayne wants to jump in with the 5 pillars or the 5 income levels that you said you'd like to discuss with school owners. So Dwayne, did you have some questions on that?
No, I mean, I want to get into that, but well, I was going to say something with regards to what we just talked about, but now I can't remember, if you can believe that.
I'm
right?
sorry.
No, that's all right.
Interrupted you.
About helping people through your program, maybe?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, you're exactly right with regards to the fact that you stay on them, you help them, you send it, because they can opt out if they don't want the emails anymore. Yep. They can text you back and say, would you stop texting me? So you're not a bother. And I'll give you for instance, this weekend we went and saw my son play. He's in college, he plays volleyball, and we went and watched them play. And there was a mom there who, we're Facebook friends, and she sees, my health and wellness coaching posts. And she said, hey, I just want you to know that I've been following you. And I'm just not ready to do it yet. But when I am, I'm going to reach out to you. And I said, okay. And I can assure you that she's never, ever liked or commented on any of those posts at all, ever.
Yeah.
And so so what I'm saying is, like you talked about, that constant follow-up, that nurturing is not a waste of time. And what you said, the smart thing to do is, if you can automate it, then you should automate that process, because then it's something that you don't have to do. So I appreciate that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So so let's get into the 5 cash kingdoms of business that you wanted to talk about. And I find it intriguing, because I've not heard this topic before. So
yeah, so our program is called the Academy Kings. So we try to do everything around like kings and queens and all of that kind of stuff. So I just gave it a cool little name of the Cash Kingdoms. But so the whole idea of this kind of system, you always want to make more money, right? So kind of thinking of like lifetime value of a client. It's always better to get more money from a client than it is to try to go grab new clients. So in general, and this is like a Jay Abrams, like way back in the day kind of idea, but there's in general 3 ways to grow your business. And so I kind of, again, nicknamed it the 3 Mo's. And it's like mo people, mo money, or mo often. So, more often, more people, or more money. So that's kind of the idea of where the Cash Kingdoms came from is, I either have to get more people into my business to make more money. And that's typically what most academies or business owners do. It's like, I need more leads, because the more people they get, they can generate more revenue, or we can get more money from those people. And we can get them to buy more often. So those are kind of like, more people or getting more money is going to be like a value ladder. Like they come in for a trial, they pay $69. We move them into a membership, and now that's a value ladder kind of idea. Or more often is like getting them to buy memberships more often, right? So now they're in that recurring mode, and then I can keep adding things to that to get that lifetime value up. So that's kind of the idea of where this originally kind of came from. And then, the idea of like, okay, so if I take the first one out, more people, like, how do I generate more revenue to get that lifetime value, in my school higher? So we, obviously we want that lifetime value. We want to know those numbers, because if I'm doing a paid in full play, and my lifetime value for a student is $2,000, I don't want to have a $500 offer to them, or $1,000 offer, because in general, I'm going to get 2,000 over the lifetime of that member. So I want it to be closer to that lifetime value. So the metrics are important to follow that data and start to do that. But so the 5 kind of cash kingdoms, one is just going to be upfront cash, right? So whether that's revenue upfront, meaning like a high ticket offer for the front end, maybe it's a pay in full, maybe it's some kind of down payment that you're working with them. But you want to have some kind of offer at the beginning that generates a lot of revenue. It builds a lot of different things. It gives us the ability to advertise more. So if we want to scale faster, we can do that. We do a $600 for 6-week program. They come in, we talk to them, we sell them a 6-week program for $600. And then from there, we will start to move them into that recurring model. So that's kind of how we set up that front end. A lot of people might do a same day close where you're trying to get a paid in full, or a down payment or something like that. But the idea is to have some kind of front end cash coming into your business so that you can, generate more revenue off of that. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, totally. Now, do you have different tiers to those 5 cash kingdoms? Like, are there components like membership sales, renewal memberships?
Yep. So the first one is just going to be that upfront kind of idea. So I'll break them down, all 5 of them real quick for you. One is going to be the upfront money. Second one is going to be your recurring revenue, whatever that looks like. Third one is kind of something that we do, and Dwayne, I think, is kind of doing this now with his health coaching, is kind of like a bolt-on. So you have like your normal membership, and then you're bolting on like another membership on top of that. From there, you go into like an upsell. So the upsells are number 4. And then number 5 is going to be like one-offs, maybe like a seminar or something like that. But so like, number 2, that recurring is like getting them into that monthly, think about your value ladder. You bring them in, like for us, we bring them in at that $600 price point for 6 weeks. We then sell them into our membership. We sell them that membership at $49 a week. So now we're at, basically it's like, hey, you paid $99 a week to get started. Now we're going to make you a really good deal, and you're only going to pay $49 a week. So it kind of flip flops the typical model of like a lower end front end offer or a free offer, to where now you like, they get something for free. And then you're trying to say, hey, now it's $200 a month, where this is like, hey, you were paying $100 a week. Now you're going to pay $50 a week. That actually cuts the price in half for them. So it kind of flip flops that model slightly.
That's great.
And then number 3 would be that bolt on. So like for us, we do supplements. We do health coaching. We don't have the intricacies of Dwayne's, but we do the same thing. So our normal membership is like $49 a week. We bolt on like a health coaching kind of aspect to that with supplements and things like that. And then we'll add another $49 a week to that membership as well. Supplement, same thing. We can bolt on revenue. That's an ongoing supplement sale for that revenue. So all of those are like bolt-on kind of actions that we can generate more cash to, again, raise that value. If I can get someone to do a $49 membership for our service, and then another $49 a week membership, or $50 a month membership for supplements or some other kind of idea, now I've just turned that in, I've added another $50 a month to that person's revenue.
That's great. Yeah.
So now I love it. I love it, by the way. Now all we have to do is we've got to change the verbiage, right? The verbiage has to be like, well, if you want another chink in your armor, since we're talking about kings and queens. No, just kidding.
Yeah. I like that.
By the way, one of my favorite Aerosmith songs is Kings and Queens back in the day. So that's a great song. It's your soundtrack to your commercials.
So the individuals that you coach, that you're giving this information to, how far of a swing mentally is it for you to I don't want to say talk them into it, but for lack of a better term, convince them that, look, it works. Darn it. Would you just follow it?
Yeah. Get them to buy in.
So again, it goes back to coaching, right? So an example that I used a lot for this, because a lot of these guys that are coming in are jiu-jitsu guys or martial artists in general. And so I kind of go to them and I say, hey, look, if I came to you and I said, hey, I want to be a world champion, or I want to be, kickboxing pro champion, world kickboxing, whatever, or jujitsu guy. And I came to you and I said, hey, I want to be a champion. And you tell me, hey, you got to eat this food. You got to go run every morning. You got to lose weight and get to this weight category. You got to do these drills and do these techniques. And then I came to you and I'm like, well, like, I don't think I want to do any of that stuff, but I still want to be a world champion. So what's another way? You're going to say like, no, you're not going to be a world champion.
Yeah.
And so like, I kind of relate that back to them. And I'm like, look, you're coming to me. You see that it works for my school. You see that it works for a lot of people that we get are referrals. So you see that it works for your friend. Or, you just see all like hundreds of testimonials that we have, and it's like, it works. So every time you try to throw a variable in there, like, you're not going to get the same outcome. So if you just follow this system, and, I say a thing called like chop the wood. It's like, the system is basic, but if you start like shiny object and you want to change it, and you want to, hey, I'm going to say this instead of this, or I'm going to offer this instead of that, every time you change that, you're going to get a different result. So like what we have right here works every time. So if you want to do that, follow this system. If you want to play with it, like, you can, but let me do the testing on my money. And then, part of the thing is like, I'm constantly testing new offers or different, programs and things like that. So once I test it at mine, then I shoot it out to some of our, we kind of spread it out between the higher end people and the lower end people that are getting different results in our program. And if all of them kind of get similar results, then I kind of roll it out to everybody. But the whole idea is like, I've tested a lot. I've spent a lot of my own money. I've spent well over $100,000 on courses and mentorships and stuff like that. I'm in one right now. I spend $5,000 a month on. Let me spend my money on testing. You guys just do what works.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that the other concept that, and what I'm hearing you do is, I mean, you're taking the headline, and, let's say that's your control, right? And then you're changing the copy. And then once you find the copy that works, then you're going to change the headline and see if that headline works. But now your copy's the control, or the picture, or whatever it is. And so I agree. Why not allow you to spend your money? And then the second thing is, I think we as martial artists have a problem where, and you brought it up in the beginning of this podcast, was that our egos get in the way. You didn't say it exactly that way, but the egos get in the way, where we think, okay, we got to change it to my verbiage now. So it's got to be this way because this is my personality, as opposed to following, what actually works. There's many ways to skin a cat. Yeah. Sorry, cat lovers. There's many ways to skin a cat, but there probably are only a few effective ways to get it done efficiently and fast with little to no effort. Yeah. And that's what you're talking about here, and also see a profit in the end.
Yeah, it's just time. It's, for me, it's always time to money. Like, how quickly can I get to cash? Like, I can, and that's why I spend so much on coaching myself, on courses and things like that, because I know that, like, if somebody already figured it out, like, I could probably figure it out, but it's going to take me a bunch of money. It's going to take me a bunch of time. It's going to take me a bunch of energy. And I would rather pay for that and just get it right away as a package and say, like, implement this. And then what I can do from that is make it work for my gym or make it work for other people's academies, versus like trying to get the high level, then figure it all out from high level, and then try to get it to work on the academies. Like, if they have all the steps kind of figured out, boom, I can take that, I can remold it, I can figure it out, and then I can implement it right away. And it just, again, time to money. Like, I can get to the money faster. And that's why I think coaching is really important. I mean, that's why people do martial arts. Like, I could learn all of the techniques off of YouTube eventually. Like, maybe not as efficient or as proficient as I should, but in general, I could probably learn most of that stuff somewhere for free. But if I go get a coach, if I have an environment around me where other people are winning, like, I'm probably going to get better results faster.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and this is something really cool for people to listen to. I coach about 10 to 12 clients a week, individually, one-on-ones. Some of them do every other week. So that's why it's 10 to 12. But I find what is interesting is, number one is the martial artists will always, like Dwayne said, I'll give them my referral program and they will go through it and tweak it to make it their own. Like, you know, I'll say, give out this and they'll give out something else. Like they just got to make it their own because they have to have that control. Typical martial artists, control freaks, right? But sometimes they do it and they shoot themselves in the foot. Plus they wasted 4, 5, 10 hours on trying to retweak it to their own way, which is so frustrating as a coach. The other thing I find too is that, you know, when they're going through this system, let's say you're coaching someone, they're always questioning and then doing pieces of it. Like they're going, well, I like some of that idea. I'll do some of it, but I won't do it all. Then they're mad at you or not happy with the program because they're like, I'm not getting the same results. Well, like, hey, dummy, I told you this is the way to do it and you changed it. Like, of course you're not getting the same results, right? Like I had a client that we worked on tweaking his autoresponder. We found out that a bunch of the autoresponders to scheduled classes, the links weren't working. And we're wondering like, wow. And he didn't, you know, he set it up for some strange reason. The links were broken, but we, you know, sometimes we put things in place and we don't test it. Or we don't go back and make sure it's working right away. We want to say that program is flawed, but it was a simple little thing that needed to be fixed. Right. So that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think in general, like you said, people just want to mess with stuff. So us as coaches, like our role is really to, one, break beliefs. So like, I can't charge that much. I can't, not in my area. Like people won't do that, you know, and a lot of times I'll use, you know, so I try to use stories a lot to break those beliefs and kind of portray why we're doing certain things. But, you know, like I look at that story about the pricing of my kickboxing, like we were pricing that at $69, $79 a month. It wasn't anything to do with the program. It wasn't anything to do with any other thing. Then we just priced it wrong. So like by making one change, we were able to, you know, 3x the amount of money we made off that one program just by raising the price. It took some time, right? So we have one of our guys is Samir Chantry. He's a like 5-time world champion jiu-jitsu guy, and kind of same thing. Like he opened up the school, doing pretty well, but not like making a bunch of money. He's a good friend of mine. He was actually our first student in our coaching program. And so he had been to my school a bunch and saw like we grew really fast and we were making a lot of money. And he was like, hey, I want to do it over here. So we got him set up. And I was like, hey, at that time we were charging $500 for our 6-week program. And I was like, hey, charge $500. That's how we do it, blah, 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 all the stuff. And he's like, man, not in my area. I can't do it, blah, 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 all this stuff. So same things that every coach hears ever from, you know, any martial art owner, like not my area, people around here, you know, all of the same stuff. Right. So he charged $299. So he's charging $299. He's selling it. He's doing really well. A month later, I'm like, hey, sell it for $399. He's like, okay, I'll raise it up. So he goes to $399, you know, sells it, never any change in conversions. Gets it to $499. Like by about 6 months later, he's at $499. And he called me, dude, I sold him the first one at $499. I was like, I told you, man, like that's awesome. And then he realized, he's like, man, I just sold like 100 of these at $299, $399, $4, you know, and I could have sold all of them at $499 if I would have listened. So like super excited to sell it at $5, but then figured out like, oh my God, I left all this money on the table for so long.
Yeah, it's scary, right? And it really is a mindset shift, you know, and of course there's, you know, for some school owners, I guess there definitely is a markup and a market share that you maybe can't go beyond. I'll give you an example. In my area, and this is crazy, I think that they've locked the market down by getting everyone in this one particular business in a room and saying, this is what we're going to charge. So I'm redoing my kitchen. I'll call up a kitchen guy. Hey, how much is the average kitchen? They've never seen my kitchen. The size, for all they know, it could be the size of a closet. $50 grand to redo your kitchen. I'm like, but you haven't even seen it yet. Well, that's what we charge for kitchens. And like, I've had estimates. Finally, I got a guy realistically come and do it. He's gave me a price for like $27,000 for the same exact stuff. But they all probably got together and that was their level, right? And they set a market. Same thing goes with weddings in our area and sweet 16s, which is really big with kids by us. You know, I paid probably like 14 grand for my daughter's sweet 16 party, like a small mini wedding. But that's what it's going for.
You're a baller.
How about those, have you heard of those period parties?
No, no. What is it?
You think I'm kidding?
No, I kind of know where you're going with it,
But
but
that's exactly where I'm going. When she has her first menstrual cycle, she has a party. That is a
Wow,
thing
I've
now.
not heard it. I've got 3 daughters and they're young, but I'm not interested in that party.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to that party at all. But it's kind of odd. So I think that like even in our area, generally the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu guys are, $199 to $399 in
Yeah.
price per month. Most karate schools, martial arts schools are probably between like $169 and $199. So the BJJ guys have kind of locked in, hey, if you want to do BJJ, this is what we charge. So it's expected because they can shop price and it's all around the same price. So I think it behooves people in area like to get together and say, hey, listen, this is the general market, but martial arts school owners don't work with each other.
Yeah, it's so competitive.
Yeah, they're so competitive. They're always trying to put the next guy out of business. I'm like, dude, we have so many people if we got together and we all work together, we'd all be filled.
Yeah.
But
No,
you're putting me down,
Really.
this one's putting that one down, like, and we're all fighting against each other. It's bad for the industry. So the kitchen guys got it. They've marked it up. They're like 50 grand. That's it. That kind of thing. It's crazy. So, all right, cool. So then we're running really, the time is almost up. We already did like 50 minutes. It's crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I have a question for you. This is kind of a philosophical question. And
Sure.
then Wayne, if you have anything you want to close with. So in your life, you've been doing this for a long time. You said you have 2 daughters. How old are they?
3.
daughters.
12, 10, and 5.
Wow. So how I have a 21-year-old, and like literally the minute she was born or your kids were born, our entire existence changed, right?
Yep.
Like you start questioning what you've done before, how you're going to save your money, how you act in life, the things that you say and do and all of that. So that leads into this last question. So and it's not morbid, but it's really more of a positive question. On your deathbed, when people come to your funeral and they visit you, what do you want to be known for? Like, what would you like people to say about you or think about you? What would be your thought? And it's a pretty deep question.
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, and I think I can't remember. I was talking to one of you before the interview, like a couple months ago. I think for us as martial art owners, I think what we do is really honorable, really respectable, but we're not on that level with bankers, lawyers, doctors, all those kind of things. Like I live in a pretty nice neighborhood. All of my people are professionals around me, and like I go to the pool and I got my t-shirt on and board shorts or whatever, and they're like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a martial arts school. And it's kind of like, oh, really? And you're in our neighborhood? Yeah. And so like I think in general, like, and we talked a little bit about pricing and things like that. If I could help the community and raise the pricing up and just get the whole industry of martial arts or jiu-jitsu or whatever it is to value that the right way and actually make a decent living from it. That would be a win for me. Obviously my family is I want legacy for my family and things like that. But I think as far as like the martial arts and the business side, getting the whole industry raised up, whether it's on that same level as doctors and lawyers or whatever, maybe it won't happen, but at least getting financially compensated the same, and kind of like a little bit of respect. That like I said, I think what we do is honorable, whether it's, like the way Dwayne's helping with the health coaching and the weight loss, building confidence for kids, leadership, like all of these things are really, really important for our society. And so, just like our school teachers, like don't make a lot of money, our police don't make a lot of money. Like these things should be paid well. So people are invested and want to be part of that program to grow and to actually help society.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I know, and probably you have a whole different thing for your family, being a dad and all that other stuff. And that's super important for us to consider. I can tell you this, through COVID, I've heard from more people that trained with me in the past than ever before. Maybe it's because they were fearful, and then the martial arts, they remembered the time when they felt most confident or most in control of their lives. So they were all reaching out to me. And a lot of them too, that were in massive depression, and they looked at me rather than a psychologist, and they were like, hey, Shion or Sensei, What would I do? What should I do? How I'm feeling this way. But I can tell you that we don't hear it enough, right, Dwayne, too,
Yeah.
like from our students of how we change their lives. But the few that tell us that there are way more people out there that are not saying anything and how we've changed their lives for the better and affected their lives and so on. So that's super admirable. So keep up the great work of what you're doing and keep on pushing forward. And Dwayne, do you have anything that you wanted to do to the last question or?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Is there anything that we haven't asked that we should have asked?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we covered a lot, pretty wide variety of topics in that short amount of time. No, I mean, I think, like I said, you know, my mission is trying to raise that value up for owners. So, you know, I try to do that. You know, other than that,
And what is your average school that you coach? What are they charging per month on average, you know, in the program?
so industry average, what I talk to so many owners, and it's always the same thing, right? So it's, hey, I charge 150, but then I'm like, okay, what's your, you know, how much revenue are you making each month? And then they tell me, and the average comes to $100,
Right.
105, 109, something like that. So, on average, I like to get, most of them are coming in at that because they got grandfathered in people. They got, you know, black belts that don't pay. They got this or that,
Yeah.
whatever the reasons are, family discounts. So what I like to do is get our people to a minimum of $150 average ticket for their students per month. So what we do is we try to have them follow our system, $600 for that 6-week program. From there, we roll them into in jiu-jitsu, we call a blue belt program, or depending on, it's basically a 1-year membership. Not saying you're going to get a blue belt in that time, but you're pushing them to that next level of membership. So for us, it would be like a blue belt program. When we do that, that's $49 a week for, you know, a year, 18 months, something like that. So we try to get most of the schools that come in to follow that system. Like a really great school that I'm actually going to be doing an interview with them, I think on Friday. They came into our system. They came from a different school. They were opening up their school. They got in right at COVID. So they waited until the fall. They opened up back in September. They followed our system to a T, like exactly what we said, exactly how we do it. So they've been since September or October of last year is when they opened their door. They have 190 students, $37,000 a month in revenue, in like 7 months or 8 months, whatever that is. People that come in with the bad habits from before, you know, it's a lot more kind of like changing things in order to get them there. But we like to have that minimum of 150 average. And we like people charging about $200 a month for that stuff. We use weekly pricing because you can increase the revenue. My grandfather was a rental guy. He had a bunch of rental houses when I was growing up. And so I would go up to his house on Saturday, and he would always go and get his suit on, and he'd go up to, we live outside of Baltimore. He'd go up, he had a bunch of houses up in Baltimore called row houses. And he'd go up to Baltimore every Saturday and collect his rent. And I'd say, Granddad, why you go up every week to collect your rent? Like a lot of people just, you know, like your mortgage, you pay up once a month or whatever. And so like, he kind of broke it down to me, and he was like, hey, when I first started buying rental houses, all of my money went to the house. Like I had no extra cash. So if they had a plumbing issue, if they had a roof leak, like I didn't have, and back then, like, you know, this is in the, you know, 40s or whatever, like there wasn't credit cards or things like that. You had to pay cash for stuff. And he's like, you know, I didn't have any extra cash. So I figured out like if I charged them weekly, every time I had a problem, I had a little bit of cash sitting around to be able to pay for those expenses for those things. And then he's like, and then I figured out that I was actually making an extra month's worth of rent every year based on 52 weeks versus the 12 months. So he said, so I ended up making more money and I had cash flow throughout the time. So that's why we implemented the weekly model at our schools, is because we wanted that cash flow again, because I want to scale fast. If I have the cash, I can put more money into advertising. Like we spend $6,000 a month on Facebook ads. And that's all generated from the people that are coming through our system, and we push that money back. And that's how we get, you know, 50, 60 people coming in a month. But the idea of having that cash flow all the time and then also generating that extra revenue.
That's awesome. Great answer. And again, one of the guys, I don't know, must be on our page. Obviously, his name is Jonathan Stroud. Do you know him?
Yeah, that's my partner.
Yeah. So Jonathan said a lot of golden nuggets being dropped today, and he said learn from others' mistakes. He had a lot of comments, so I like it. It's great.
John is he's the Facebook guru, so he knows that like I am not the tech guy at all. John used to work for NASA, so he's like very tech savvy and knows all the Facebook algorithms and all the funky stuff.
That's
so
cool.
I can just run the school.
happy to have him on our podcast today as well. So that's great. So
Dwayne, Lance, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they contact you? Where do they go?
So we have a private Facebook group like you guys do. It's BJJ Business and Martial Arts Marketing. So if you want to join that group, same kind of stuff that you do here, interviews, free content, stuff like that. So great stuff there. And then growmyacademy.com. Got some testimonials. We have a 5 frameworks that we have that breaks down kind of the 5 main points of an academy and how to get people to opt into leads and video scripts and things like that are in there. So a lot of great information for kind of the 5 main things that you need to know in order to grow your academy. That's a free download that they can get access to.
So awesome. Would you be opposed to, rather than saying 5 frameworks, would you be opposed to switching that and saying, like the 5 castles or something?
There you go. I like this.
So what did we call?
I'm going to have to call you on all my naming.
Yeah. Well, Dwayne, what did we say? Well, we had the 5 with our coaching business, the 5 pillars of success, right? And like people didn't realize that what holds up the building, the 5 pillars that we had, that was what we were using as well. So I mean, those things, it seems kind of unique that most coaches are in this 5 or 7 main system. That's it.
Yep.
And if you can master those 5 or 7, that's all you need, really. You don't have to have 57 different things, and that's pretty awesome.
Again, this goes back to like shiny object. Like everybody wants to know the next tactic, the next tack, the next this, the next that. Like if you just do the basics and you do them over and over and over again, there's a really famous, jiu-jitsu guy named Roger Gracie. He's probably one of the best jiu-jitsu guys ever. Very, very basic jiu-jitsu, pulls guard, sweeps, gets to mount, cross choke, like as basic jiu-jitsu as you can get. And he wins everything. And then you have, all these guys doing crazy flying this and upside down that. And in reality, like if you can just master those basics of business, of martial arts, of whatever it is that you're working on, and you can be consistent. There's a great book called The Compound Effect.
Yeah.
It basically just talks about the consistency, having consistency over time, makes massive results. And it's the same thing, like, hey, in anything that we do, whether it's buying stocks, whether it's buying houses, if you can just consistently do it over time, you're going to be wealthy. You're going to have a successful business. You're going to be a good martial artist. You're going to eat healthier, like whatever it is, like it's basics, do them over and over and over again. And you will have success in your life.
That's
now, I know we need to end, but I'm super intrigued about the weekly as opposed to monthly payments. I mean, I have an option where you can do it monthly, bi-monthly, or you can do it weekly. I charge more for weekly than I do, but you have everybody on weekly.
Everybody's on weekly. So mathematically, you get an 8% increase by having that weekly model. And you can do this weekly, you can do this bi-weekly, so every 2 weeks, or you can even do it on a 28-day cycle and you still get the same results. I like weekly. So many points to weekly that makes it attractive, right? So one is, if I tell you it's, for us, our kind of normal coming off the street, $59 a week. So that's like $260 a month. If I tell you, hey, it's $260 a month, you're like, that's a lot of money. If I tell you it's $59 a week, like it just doesn't sound as much, right? Sure. It's the same idea as like a car dealership saying, hey, it's 5 months or 5 years or 60 months. Like 60 months just sounds less than 5 years.
What do you do with regards to your, like, I don't know if you close it all, but there's closings that I have, and yet they're still paying that week, but not training.
And this goes back to coaching or any of those kind of things. It's expectations. So we just set those expectations at the beginning.
Yeah.
So when I have that expectation, I say, hey, it's a weekly pricing model. So we charge you every week that $49 a week. You can't freeze if you get sick. You can't freeze if you are going out of town. Like, you can only freeze a minimum of 1 month up to a maximum of 3 months. That's it. If you want out of the contract, it's a 3-month penalty. So we do months kind of on the idea of freezing and cancellation, but on the model of actually paying, it's on that weekly basis.
Okay. All right.
So again, attractiveness for the client, it's an easier sale when I say $49 a week versus $200 a month. Delinquencies. It's easier to get $49 if someone's delinquent than it is to get $200 if they're delinquent. The increase in that money, right? So us as owners are paying our electric on a daily basis. We're paying our staff typically by the class or by the hour or something like that, which is going to, trickle down to a daily basis. So all of these expenses that we have, insurance and things like that, typically are going to be worked out over the year, but it's calculated on a daily basis. So all of these expenses we're paying on a daily basis or a weekly basis, yet we're collecting money on a monthly basis typically. So what happens is we literally take 1 month out of our pocket and pay for that as business owners. So on that weekly model, now, really on average, people are making about $10,000 a year in our industry, 10 to 12,000. By making this one change, they can actually double their profit at the end of the month, at the end of the year, by making that one simple change. Like, they'll collect 1 whole month of revenue and not have to pay anything else for that. So there's a lot of pluses to that. And
I love it.
You like it?
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I have the weekly option, but I never thought about switching everything just weekly. Yep. And I knew that I was making more money on weekly anyways, even without the price being a little bit higher.
Yep.
So
the multiplier is a 4.3 multiplier is how you figure this out. So just say you're at $30 or $150 a month. That's going to work out to mathematically $35 a week. But if you use the multiplier, it's actually $37 a week is what you get. So it actually bumps it up about $10 a month. So even if you want it, so there's a lot of strategies and things that we kind of coach on, but one for you right now is if you wanted to make that switch, you can either switch it on all your new people that come in the door and you do that. And then as people come up for renewals, you just say, hey, like, we've switched to this weekly pricing model. I'll keep you at the same price that you're at, $150, but now you're going to pay that, $35 a week, which is the same that they're paying now, but we're going to get that extra 0.3 kind of on that. They're not going to care that they pay $150 or $160. They just know that, hey, cool, I'm paying $35 a week. I was paying $150. It all makes sense.
Yep. I love that. I mean, not that there wasn't
really well.
Not that there wasn't anything else good in this interview, but this one stuck out to me big time. So
yeah,
that
works really well, and that's one of the major things. That one tactic took us from we made $65,000 extra in 1 year from just making that one change.
Yep,
that was just straight profit.
Love it. Well, hey, thanks for making time again. Once again, give us where everybody can reach you.
growmyacademy.com would be just like a quick lander. You can throw your email in there, get the free 5 frameworks, got some testimonials and stuff like that on there for us. And then if you want the free content weekly basis, we have the BJJ Business and Martial Arts Marketing Facebook group. And then anybody can just search up Lance Trippett on Instagram or Facebook.
And I'll do me a favor and just message me that those links and everything through our messenger, if you would, because I'm going to put that on the actual podcast. So if somebody's looking for it, you can go to schoolownertalk.com/270. Again, that's schoolownertalk.com/270. You can get all of Lance's information there. Lance, thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys so much as well.
Don't forget our sponsors. We have eliteinsights.com, sparkmembership.com, leadhuntermedia.com, and your coaching program as well. They can reach out to you for the health coaching at Dwayne Brummett on Facebook, or however. How do you like them to get in touch with you, Dwayne?
Yeah, they can message me on Facebook. That's fine.
Awesome, guys. Great call. Thank you, bud. We appreciate it. It's great talking to you. And we got to talk to you about more sponsorship and get you to be one of the sponsors in our program.
That'd be great.
We'd love to have you.
All right.
All right.
Thanks
awesome.
so much.
Take
All right,
care.
have a good one, sir.
Thanks, Dwayne. Take care.